Tempe's Neighborhood Services Office. I'll be helping out with hosting today's meeting. Chase Wellman, a transportation planner for the city of Tempe, and Ray Ipagiri, probably said that wrong, apologies, Ray. Ray is our design consultant with HDR. He will be presenting with Chase as well. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the website tempe.gov/countryclubwaypath, probably Monday. Slight correction, we have Jason Harrington from HDR today instead of Ray. Before we get started, some information on how to participate. After the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. You can either type your question into the chat or the Q&A section, and I will read them to the team to answer, or you can raise your hand, I'll unmute you, and you can ask the question yourself. That's probably the better way to go if you're going to have any kind of follow-up questions. We'll take you kind of in order as they come in. Be patient with us. Sometimes it gets kind of hard to see all the questions if there's a lot popping up. If you're on your cell phone, you'll want to click on the chat bubble. Please note that the comments that you enter today are not officially logged in for the City Council. You need to actually go to the survey to do that. I put a link to the survey in the chat. So it's tempe.gov/forum. The comment period for this topic closes on October 7th, so make sure you enter any comments you have before then. Okay, I think that covers it. Chase, over to you.
Thanks, Laura. And just wanted to check real quick to see if Ray was actually on this meeting. And Jason, are you going to be joining the presentation today?
Yeah, if you need me to speak on any part, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't look like Ray is joining us. So I will begin the presentation. Yeah, Jason, if you want to jump in at any point, just let me know as I go through the slides. My name is Chase Wallman. I'm a transportation planner with the City of Tempe. And thank you everyone joining this morning on the Saturday to participate in our Country Club Way Bike and Pedestrian Improvement Project. This is our first round of public meetings. We were originally slated to hold these in March, but due to the precautions with COVID, they were delayed until now. So now we're hosting our virtual public meetings. We had one on Wednesday, and this is our second public meeting for this first round. And with that, I'll go ahead and give everyone an overview of this. And as far as introductions, Jason Harrington's also joining us today. He's the landscape architect on this project. He's with Harrington Planning and Design and is a sub-consultant with HDR, who is our prime design consultant to finish up the final plans, specs, and estimates. Jason Harrington was also with this project in 2017 when we did the preliminary design report, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but he was the lead on that as well. So with that, this project, it's a 3.5 mile bike and pedestrian improvement project, generally along Country Club Way from Warner Road to the US 60. It's a holistic bike and pedestrian project, which is calling out improvements from Elliott to Warner Road to be a equestrian trail and concrete multi-use path with lighting, as well as a signal at Warner. Going north, we have mostly on-street options. So these are dedicated bicycle facilities in the form of bike lanes or shared lane markings, as well as we'll be looking at opportunities for traffic calming, improvements into ADA access, such as improving the directional ramps at sidewalks and at intersections, as well as the inclusion of public art with this project. This project was first identified in the Transportation Master Plan. We brought this project along with other candidate projects to the city's Transportation Commission to ask their feedback on which project they would like to propose to compete for MAG, which is Maricopa Association of Governments Design Assistance Funding. And that's a typical first step of a lot of our bike and pedestrian improvement projects, where we're able to develop a cost estimate, as well as understand some of the opportunities and constraints for the whole corridor, and get our initial public feedback. So we competed for that grant and were awarded that grant in 2016. We went out to the public in 2017 with Harrington Planning and Design and held our public meetings, got our initial feedback. This is some of the pictures of that initial feedback that we received, where landscaping, traffic calming, safety were some of the higher priorities at that time in 2017. Once we finished that design assistance report, we developed some preliminary concepts, got all that feedback, and really understood, had a good idea of what the project cost would be. So in 2018, we competed for federal construction funding in the form of a CMAQ grant, which is a Federal Highway Administration grant, and we were awarded just over $2.6 million for construction of the project that's slated in fiscal year 2022. We started the final design in 2019, and as I said earlier, we were anticipating holding this first meeting in March. It got delayed, obviously, so now here we are in September holding our first round of public meetings. This video is going to be a flyover view showing the whole project corridor. It's going to be starting at Warner Road and continuing north. So this is the area of ASU Research Park and the proposed future signal. And now we're approaching Elliott Road and Shutterfly Way. This is near the Discovery Center. And now we're approaching Western Canal and then Country Club Way. And now we're approaching Watson Drive. This is where we make a right turn and continue east for a little bit, going around this curve. We're now in the Optimist Park neighborhood. And this is our future El Paso Path Improvement Project, as well as Fuller Elementary School in Optimist Park. Now we're approaching Baseline Road in our final segment of the corridor. And this is our northern terminus of the project. This is meeting the US 60 pedestrian bridge. So today we're coming with our 15% level design. So it's our first design benchmark here where we get our public feedback. So these are, what you'll see in the following slides, are preliminary design alternatives. So along the corridor, being that it's 3.5 miles, there's a lot of unique sections. So we're proposing 2 alternatives per section. So 5 total sections on here with 2 alternatives each. This red section is the Warner to Elliott Road ASU Research Park section. You'll have 2 main alternatives here. This is basically choosing whether you want the equestrian path on the west end of our 40-foot easement or the concrete multi-use path on the west end of the easement, which we'll go into more detail later. The Elliott Road to Western Canal, this green section, will have the option of an on-street 2-way cycle track or a side path, which would be like an off-street path that is directly connected to the curb on the west side of Shutterfly Way. The blue section, Western Canal to Guadalupe Road, there's 2 alternatives. The first being standard bike lanes with parking on both sides. The second alternative being bike lanes with added 2.5-foot buffers and parking on one side of the street. The Guadalupe to Watson Drive, the 2 alternatives that we'll see are standard bike lanes with 2 lanes of parking. The other alternative is a shared lane with a buffer placed in between both parking lanes. And then finally, the northern section, the Watson Drive to US 60 is, apologize, that's a typo on the top part. It's either a shared lane with buffer and parking, or it's going to be a larger shared lane without a buffer, maintaining the parking we'll go in more detail along here. This section is showing the existing conditions of the ASU Research Park section. So on the blue arrows on the left indicate some of the existing street entrances into the neighborhood, from the neighborhood there into ASU Research Park. So in the blue, you'll see the locations on the aerial of Buena Vista Drive and Citation Lane. And this is showing the existing connection there to the ASU Research Park section. This red line on the left is showing our 40-foot easement that we'll be utilizing on the west end of ASU Research Park, adjacent to the block wall of this neighborhood to the west here. And this existing condition also shows you the Equestrian Trail, which we'll be maintaining in some form with our improvements. In the blue is showing an existing asphalt path, so not an improved concrete multi-use path or to our city standards, but it provides a connection into ASU Research Park as well as some of those neighborhood connections. This is a future proposed signal that is either in construction or has been recently completed at Elliott Road, and this will provide a pedestrian connection for us across Elliott Road. And it's not a part of the scope of this project, but we'll finish before we begin this project. The other side on Warner Road, this is showing the existing condition here. You can see a bicyclist on the right of this image trying to make the connection across, but this is the location of the future proposed signal at Warner Road, which would be in the scope of this project. So with that this Warner to Elliott Road section, we have two proposed alternatives, the circle alternative and the square alternative. As you can see from the photo, the circle alternative has a multi-use path shown on the west side of that easement. It's called out to be a 10-foot concrete multi-use path, which is our city standard. In addition, it would have a buffer to the west, which would be occupied by the required lighting that we would need for the concrete multi-use path. As with all of our projects that are adjacent to homes as far as our specified lighting, we would include having a back shield on it to reduce any backspill into the yards adjacent to these light poles. And then on the right is where we would have another buffer where we would have an opportunity for additional landscaping, as well as an equestrian trail just east of that. On the square alternative, it's basically a flip-flop of that. You'll see that more buffer space is provided on the square alternative in between the block wall and the concrete multi-use path and some of the other required amenities like the lighting, for example. So there's an opportunity with the square alternative to have perhaps a little bit more buffer space. So what we want to understand is the residents' priorities as far as what type of user they would want that close to the adjacent homes, as well as some of the implications that might be had with being able to buffer out the lighting with potential landscaping. Or in one alternative, you have the landscaping on the east side of the path versus the west side of the path. And there may be some cost implications as well with some existing utilities or other conflicts, which we'll explore in future design. So these are the two alternatives that we're proposing. This slide is showing a plan view side by side of basically what that would look like over an aerial. These black symbols are the light poles, and we also have the tree symbols. So at this point, we don't have, at the 50% level design, we don't have any lighting specifications or spacing specified yet. And we also don't have our landscaping design yet. That will come in the next design, which we'll be sharing with everyone. But our goal with that is that we would provide as many trees as possible to shade the users using the pathway. And what you'll see here at Buena Vista Drive is a proposed rest node location that's similar to the one that's at Citation Lane. And then this is a third proposed rest node location at Warner Road, as well as the proposed pedestrian signal location. And that signal, as far as what type of signal, whether it's a hybrid beacon, so like a signal similar to what you'll see crossing the Western Canal versus a full pedestrian signal like you might see along Kyrene Canal, has not been determined yet, but this is the proposed general alignment of that future pedestrian signal. This is showing the existing conditions from Elliott to Western Canal along Shutterfly Way. The Discovery Center is on the east, and on the west we have an existing wider sidewalk that's about 8 feet. The roadway consists of a two-way left turn lane, the center turn lane, and then 2 through lanes with bike lanes currently existing, and all the driveways are on the east side. This is the turnaround point, and over here on the west side is where our entrance, our existing multi-use path entrance, is going towards the Western Canal. These are some existing bollards that are in place to restrict vehicle entrance into the Western Canal area. And then this is showing a photo of our connection to the Western Canal. On the right would be continuing north. On the left here would be continuing south. This is showing one of the existing rest node locations that we have here that just recently got improved as well with another project. So in the scope of this project, we won't be making any improvements to this area except for looking at maybe some ADA improvements if necessary. But other than that, this would be the existing condition that we connect to along Country Club Way. So this is just a photo simulation of what that two-way cycle track could look like along Shutterfly Way. It would involve restriping the rest of the roadway, but would allow for a buffer space. The bicyclists would be on the same grade as the vehicles. And with this, we would still be maintaining about 16 feet. It's a very wide section, 16 feet travel lanes for vehicles in this section. And this alternative is showing what a side path could look like, and that's taking the bicyclists on a different grade, on the sidewalk grade instead of the vehicular grade, and they would be sharing a 10-foot concrete pathway leading to the Western Canal. This is just a cross-section view so you can get an idea of what some of those buffer space widths would be, as well as the two-way cycle track. The top alternative is not showing any striping, but it would be assumed that the existing striping to date would be maintained. This is a flyover plan view of those alternatives. And showing the existing or the future signal at Elliott Road and what that connection would look like, taking the users from the east side of the street to the west side to our improvements. And we would like to keep the improvements on the west side due to the lack of driveways that are seen on that west side. This is showing existing conditions now working from Western Canal, from Guadalupe Road to Western Canal. This is one of the wider corridors that we have along the segment, so it gives us opportunity to have dedicated bicycle facilities along this section, as well as the opportunity to introduce buffers. So you can kind of see the existing condition here of the wider corridor. We also have a block wall on the east side of the street that doesn't have any access to the homes over there to the west. So that's the side of the street where we will be proposing a removal one side of on-street parking to enable those buffers due to the existing use of the on-street parking there along Country Club Way. We would still maintain on-street parking on the other side, as you can see from this cross-section view. So the circle alternative is showing a 6.5-foot bike lane and 2.5-foot buffer to replace that on-street parking. As it gives us the opportunity as well to have buffer zones in between the door zone on the right side. This would be the northbound location, and a buffer from passing vehicles on the left. The square alternative would be maintaining both sides of parking along the street and introducing standard bike lanes here. Again, we'll be showing a plan view of a side-by-side just to give an idea of what that buffer would look like, as well as the parking on both sides of the street. And now we're nearing the Western Canal connection on the south. And this section is our second to last section. This is Guadalupe to Watson Drive. This is where we have a bit more room than the section to the north. So you'll see two different alternatives here. What the existing condition shows is a 44-foot curb-to-curb distance. So all these improvements north will be working within the current street section that we have. So here we see just two large travel lanes. On-street parking is allowed, obviously, and we also have some additional traffic calming in these speed humps. And here's a view further north. This is where we make our turn going east along Watson Drive and make our connection to another alternative. So for this small section, we're introducing these two alternatives. One would be a bike lane with parking on both sides of the street, the other being a shared lane and a buffer in between the parked cars and the shared vehicle and bicycle lane that we have here, or otherwise a shared lane. So just comparing the left to the right, we see a buffer in between the parked cars and the bicyclists, or sorry, a standard bike lane that the bicyclists are using on the right side versus a shared lane where you see the bicyclists and the vehicles in the same lane on the left side. Okay, and going right into this is our final section. So this is working from US 60 to Watson Drive. This is our tightest section where we only have 40 feet available curb to curb width. So our opportunities to add a dedicated bicycle facility here are just not possible. So we're proposing two different alternatives that introduce a shared lane to this section. But for this section, we would be maintaining both sides of on-street parking here. And this is as we just passed Spaceline Road, and we're kind of working our way towards the area of Fuller Elementary and Optimus Park. So we have Fuller Elementary here on the right. And our soon-to-be improved El Paso multi-use path project is going east to west at that location. And now we're taking that curve along Watson Drive. And now connecting back to Country Club Way. So with that, your two alternatives for this segment, again, the tightest corridor cross-section that we have is a shared lane with bicyclists and vehicles with a 2.5-foot buffer and then your parking lane versus the square alternative, which has a wider shared lane for bicyclists and vehicles and your standard parking lane. So again, working from the US 60 and working our way south to Watson Drive. The right side, you could see the double lines indicating the buffer zone in between the parked cars. On the left, you have a wider lane for those shared uses of the bicyclists and vehicles. All right. So with that, those are our alternatives for each of those individual 5 segments. There are some additional elements that are still in design that we don't have worked out yet at this 15% level. Once we understand which are the preferred alternatives, we'll go ahead and design that and understand what the alignment would be and some of our opportunities and constraints with those alternatives. And with that, we'll layer in these additional elements that you'll be seeing in these slides. This is looking at a potential conceptual design for our rest node locations. And Jason, if you wanted to talk about this improvement.
Yeah, so one of the things we do with the nodes is we put them at a spacing that's a quarter mile or a 15-minute walk. So we want to make sure that people have an area to recover, rest, get reoriented, get some reprise from some shade for the area. We're looking at potential structured shade. Could be tensile fabric, could be rigid metal, could be vines. You know, we're still working through the detail of the materials, but it would be a seating comfortable area that has some wayfinding element, an area to stage your bike or skateboard, rest and recover, and just kind of get oriented. It's also a great opportunity for a public art location to be integrated into the project. But as we work through the design, we'll start to fine tune some of those details about what these nodes may become.
Great, thanks, Jason. And this is a placeholder. This is showing from one of our other previous projects what the landscape palette looked like for that project. So Jason will be working on the landscape design as well as we move forward. So we'll be presenting those additional elements that you see in the slide to you guys when we come back for a second round of public meetings. But Jason, did you want to talk about anything as far as the landscape palette?
Yeah, with federally funded projects and areas that the city of Tempe maintains, we need to make sure that all of our plants are from the low water use plant list. So we want to make sure that they're water conservation plants. Most of them will be native as well. And then we'll also have to determine where irrigation comes from to get these plants established and maintained in a healthy order as well. So as we work through the design of the process beyond this kind of 15% early concept, we'll start to fine tune that and determine where we can best provide the most appropriate aesthetics and shade.
Thanks, Jason. This is showing the potential for some traffic calming elements. So this is a photo in Tempe of a raised median. So we'll be looking at opportunities as well, since we saw in 2017 when we went out the priority for some additional traffic calming elements. We'll be looking at that as we move forward in this design once alternatives are selected. So these are some examples of what traffic calming could look like, and the opportunity, depending on some of the underground utilities, if we have the opportunity to landscape these medians as well. In addition, these are some other elements that could be provided, chicanes or having curb extensions here that make the road a little bit more narrow in hopes of having some friction and reducing speed in these areas. So we'll be looking at all potential traffic calming elements along the corridor, and we'll be presenting those when we come back to you guys early next year. This is showing some of the other work that could be included. This is along Broadway Road. So we'll be looking at potential for some higher visibility crosswalks. We'll be looking at signals, making sure that those are also ADA compliant, as well as improving the directional ramps at the arterials. And then depending on what alternative selected, we can look at green thermoplastic, that green paint that you see there as well. So those are all potential elements that could be included as well moving forward. And this is showing some examples, as well as some wayfinding signage that could be layered in to the project, given it's a long corridor, as well as potential for the lighting. It could be potentially solar lighting as well. So again, the lighting specifications haven't been worked out beyond providing a back shield and having the light focus forward instead of backwards. But beyond that, we'll be coming back to you guys early next year for those additional elements. And then finally, again, with our proposed signal at Warner, this is an example of what a full pedestrian signal looks like. This is our newly improved Highline Canal project, where we have a crosswalk and a full pedestrian signal here. This is compared to maybe what you've seen along Western Canal, which are the flashing red lights. So at this time, we don't know which of those signals would be put in, but this is just showing what that could look like along Warner Road. And that brings us to our next steps. So we went to our Transportation Commission to collect feedback from there. Again, we were supposed to come out in March, but we're here now due to the precautions with COVID. So this is our first round of public meetings, our first opportunity to get feedback since we went out in 2017. We'll take all this feedback. Our feedback's open until October 7th for this first phase. So we'll gather all that feedback and refine the design based on that feedback. We'll come back out in early 2021 for that second round of public meetings. This is where we'll show you which one of the alternatives were preferred as far as all the feedback received, and show you some of those additional elements that I talked about in the previous slide. We'll go again to our Transportation Commission and possibly some other commissions of our city, like the Sustainability Commission. We'll also have an internal review of other city departments and get their feedback on the design, as well as some of our other stakeholders like ASU Research Park as well, to get their feedback on the design. So we'll continue to refine it. We'll come back out in early 2021, and that's kind of our 30% level design. We're anticipating finishing, again, getting the feedback, refining the design once more, but then finishing the final plan specs and estimates in late 2021. And this would be to coincide with the anticipated construction start in early 2022. So with that, I also wanted to point out the survey location, it's at www.tempe.gov/forum, and you'll see there's multiple surveys on there for different city projects. You'll look for the Country Club Way one, and that way your feedback will be officially recorded with all the other feedback received from residents to date. And below you'll have below that is my contact information. Should you have any additional questions, there's my email and phone number. And again, I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time out of their Saturday to join us to participate in this public meeting for the Country Club Way Bike and Pedestrian Improvement Project. And with that, I think we'll open it up to our Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Jace. So we have a couple questions. I'm going to take them in the order they came in. We have one from Ryan. Ryan asks, would the landscape trees be evergreen?
The landscape design hasn't been determined yet. I'm not sure if Jason, if you want to speak to that. We'll be asking for feedback as well when we show our first landscape palette. We'll be asking for feedback if you agree with the palette, if there's any other species that you would like to see in there. So you definitely propose that in the survey at this time, even though we don't have an actual landscape palette anticipated. But I'll let the expert in our landscape design talk more about the potential for evergreen.
Yeah, we've got a very long corridor and a lot of nodes along the corridor. There's definitely the opportunity to have evergreen trees within it. I highly suspect that it will include some evergreens. I don't know which ones at this time or how many. That'll be driven by budget. That'll be driven by a few other factors as well. But most likely there'll be some evergreens included within the project. We do want to make sure that we have seasonal variety throughout the corridor as well. So it'll probably be a mixture of different types of trees.
Okay. We have another question from Amanda. Well, she's actually got a couple here, so I'm going to read them all because they kind of all come together. Same sort of thing. Circle G residents, there's 161 homes. They only have one exit onto Warner Road. Any traffic light west of our neighborhood, as marked on the map, would be extremely dangerous, particularly as Warner is a major rush hour arterial. What is the purpose of the light? If Circle G residents strenuously object to the unsafe traffic light location, do you have another traffic light location along Warner? Are you open to another option?
Yeah, this is our first time coming for feedback, so we'll of course take any feedback. We would not propose a signal that would be dangerous, so everything's reviewed with our city traffic engineer as well as the traffic engineering team from our design consultant. So we would never propose any signal that would be dangerous. I think it would actually enhance the connection and potentially reduce some of the existing mid-block connections that are made along Warner Road with pedestrians wishing to go across Warner without a signal there. The closest signal that we have currently is east at River Drive, which for this connection for anywhere south of Warner would be about a half-mile round trip to go from that point south of Warner going to River Drive and then back to our pathway. So with all of our projects, like any of our other path improvement projects, we like to create a direct connection for those users to be able to connect across, especially an arterial like this. So that is the proposed location that we have for the signal. It would be a direct connection, which is the precedent that we have. I'd like to strive for our concrete multi-use path, but this is our first time going to the public. So any feedback that you'd like to share or concerns with that signal, definitely get it down on our survey so we have it for the record.
Okay, so we also have a number of other people wanting to make comments. I'm going to take you all in order. I have Aaron, Mikkel, Sid, and I believe Tim. So we'll start with Aaron. Aaron, I'm unmuting you now.
Can you hear me?
We can.
That's not my name. My name is Aaron, but I'm a different Aaron, so I'm not sure if there's a different one.
Oh, well, go ahead and make your comments. I have only one Aaron on my screen.
Oh, that's strange. Okay, so I was just speaking to the portion of the path that was at between Warner and Elliott, And I believe that mixing the current equestrian path, which is what it is, with a bike pedestrian path is not a good combination. I think it needs to stay as it is with the equestrian path, which exists separate from the bike pedestrian path. The current one, and it's even on your city documents, is the bike and walking path provided in the research park, which then connects to that River Parkway signal. There's a reason that horses and bikes are kept separate. I can only imagine if a horse is fenced in between walls and trees and then bikes going extremely fast by them, that they could be spooked, and it would be a liability for the city at that point if they ran into pedestrians or young children. They're not meant to be mixed. And I think the original city plan was to have the walking and bikes going through the research park. And that's why they're only 0.25 miles apart. So to use city funds to create another walking and bike path when there's one 0.25 miles away, it just doesn't make that much sense. And River Parkway is the kind of signal that is needed for pedestrians and bikes when they're crossing Warner, as it is extremely congested during rush hour. We had a crane detach and run into a fence along Circle G's north wall. It's very busy and very fast. And people, if they miss a pedestrian signal, there could be a tragedy there. Just like down by Congroves, where you guys have that unmarked crosswalk, I've heard multiple people say it's just an accident waiting to happen. So we don't want another pedestrian crossway where there could be more accidents when we already have the full signal at River. And when residents are turning out of Circle G to go west, it's already extremely congested. So if we were to put a light right there and that's our only exit, it would further hamper residents' ability to get out. And we're not looking to connect our equestrian facilities to public equestrian things because ours are all private. And we only have 2 residents that actively ride their horses. So it's not like there's a high demand to make this equestrian crossing on Warner Road. It's just unsafe for horses. And then the country club path that was on your maps, the proposed path, it goes west between Guadalupe and Baseline to connect. And so I'm wondering if the same thing can be done between Elliott and Warner, if it could go west and connect at River instead of going straight down. I know that in response to Amanda's comment, he said that you don't like to go over 0.25 miles, but you've done that exact same thing between Guadalupe and Baseline. You've gone over about 0.25 miles to connect the path. We already have the existing facilities for bikes and pedestrians. So it's like you guys are joining an equestrian piece to a bike and pedestrian trail that's going to be a mess when there's a horse accident because they don't ride next to fast bikers. So really, it needs to continue to be the research park for bikes and pedestrians and leave the current pathway as an equestrian pathway and not mix them. And this doesn't have to destroy the whole proposal. It just needs to move the bike and pedestrian pathway to continue to go through the research park as it currently does. And it would probably save a ton of money. So just because this is federal grant money or whatever, that's not free money. This is taxpayer money, and we want our money used wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mikkel, I'm unmuting you. You are next up. Mikkel, did you have a question?
I thought I was in listen only mode and that you were going to read the question. So my question was, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mikkel. Go ahead.
All right. So my question was about the utility road from Warner to Elliott that's currently used by vehicles fairly regularly.
We seem to be having some problem with Mikkel's audio, so I'll try and read her question for her. The Warner to Elliott section is a utility road that is currently used by utility vehicles fairly regularly. Will they still drive in it, and if so, where?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the specified. It may be the SRP area that's being utilized. If there's any agreement or existing easement we would need to take in place that would have to factor into the design. So we would need to provide, in times like that, we've had.
It's not just SRP, it's the landscaping vehicles and it's construction vehicles and it's all kinds of different, commercial vehicles that the research park approves, I assume.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be, once we improve this section, there wouldn't be any construction vehicles that would be allowed unless they got an easement. And if that were the case, we would have to close the path. But there should be additional staging opportunities for those construction vehicles that would be outside of that easement area. So there shouldn't be any construction vehicles. If there are utility vehicles that regularly service the area, we may add increased thickness with the concrete to allow for their trucks. It's similar to any of the SRP canals as well that utilize that corridor. There's certain design elements that we would need to provide a certain vertical clearance for them or horizontal clearance to allow for their vehicles.
Okay, do you know how much wider it would have to be for a vehicle? Because that would take out even more trees.
Well, I'm not sure. When we have our design review, once we have a further design, we have all the utility companies review the plans and they give us comments. So it depends on vehicles that are utilizing it. They dictate, if they do have the right of access for that, then they would dictate what kind of vehicles are maintained. Sometimes it's just a pickup truck, sometimes it's a larger truck. It's just a case-by-case basis. So we have all the utility companies review our plans and they give us comments and then we design accordingly. At this time, we don't have that plan review yet. We will once we continue the design forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sid. Sid, I've unmuted you. Would you like to make some comments?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick comment on pedestrian versus hawk lights. I live in Camelot Village and I've run and biked this Country Club Parkway and the Western Canal for many, many years. And the hawk lights on Rural Road and McClintock efficiently minimizes the time that traffic is stopped to allow pedestrians to cross. Pedestrian light on the Kyrene path sometimes can be a real frustration to motorists because the light can be for many minutes red and no one in the pathway. At least with the hawk lights, they're pretty much active when people want to cross. My vote would certainly be for the hawk lights. On the section of Elliott to Warner, there was some discussion about the existing tree line. Is that existing tree line within this domain of the improvements, or is that outside the domain? Or would there be any trees that would have to be removed?
Yeah, at this time, until we have a selected alternative, we don't know the specific trees that would be. There's a 40-foot easement, so I'm sure there are some existing mature trees that are within that 40 feet. I think a lot of them are outside of that 40 feet, but we'll find out when we come back again in the spring or in the early part of 2021. We'll know exactly what those impacts might be. As I said previously, though, if there's any opportunity within that 40 feet to move the path around any mature trees, or if we could curve the path or maybe reduce the buffer in areas where we have those conflicts, we'll do everything that we can in order to save any mature trees. The only time where we wouldn't be able to is if there was any existing utility that was constraining us from being able to move around those trees. But in any case, we're gonna strive to obviously not remove any mature tree and think critically about how we could design, if there's any tighter portions, how we could design the pathway to reduce that. But at this time, we don't have any specific tree call out. That'll be a part of what Jason Harrington's scope will be as well, in addition to all the new trees that we will be planting with this project.
Good, because currently as a biker and a runner, I can traverse that path between Elliott and Warner at least half the way in the shade right now with mature trees. So it's great.
Yeah.
Also on the section from the Western Canal to Guadalupe, Country Club Way, our community has discussed that issue for some period of time about the high-speed traffic. Right now, it's just a wide open thoroughfare and a raceway. So any improvements as far as chicanes or the bike lanes or the parking or travel restrictions will certainly be an asset in calming the traffic in that area, because people do blow through there. There's no restrictions. It looks like a racetrack. So that section definitely needs some improvement.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have a question from Kate. I'll read this, Kate, but I'll unmute you in case you want to add to it or follow up. It says, with neighborhood pathways, street parking leaves low visibility to residents leaving their driveways and the safety to bikers in the bike path. Any way to go around the neighborhood, not through. Safety concerns. And Kate, I am unmuting you in case you want to follow up a little bit.
The main areas of voicing the safety concerns is between Guadalupe to Watson and Watson to the 60. And this is more of voicing a safety concern.
Sure. Yeah, Laura, can you repeat the beginning? Were you asking about restricting on-street parking or?
More voicing the safety concern of residents leaving their driveways and the safety of bikers also using the two-way part as opposed, that was proposed, like the circle one that had the bikers on in the lanes. So just safety concerns of both parties.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think So for the sections that are Watson to 60, Watson to 60, it's basically that buffer area is your only difference there. So that might move the bicyclists a little bit further into the center of the street versus the wider shared lane. And then for the other alternative from Guadalupe to Watson, that's where you have the standard bike lane and the parking versus that shared lane. So are you saying that you think that there'd be a safety advantage then to the shared lane versus the standard bike lane for that alternative? I just want to make sure I'm understanding the concern about where is it where the bicyclists are in the street when the vehicles back out?
Just like ways to increase awareness of when the residents are leaving their homes, that we're introducing a shared bike lane within the neighborhoods.
Right. Okay.
Yes. If I also may one other comment, when we're hearing about the trees, perhaps if there's some kind of way to rehome trees and replant them in ways or areas around the area, so that way they don't necessarily have to die. We could replant them if you do have to remove them from their current living situation. Just wanted to throw that in from my personal self.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for the comments.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thank you all. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I am not seeing any further questions in the chat right now or Q&A. Anybody want to add anything? Okay, here's one from Sid. Will the PowerPoint be available to download? Yes, it will be on our website. It's maybe a little challenging to download because of the animation in there, but it will definitely be on there, and a recording of this whole meeting will also be posted probably a little bit later in the day on Monday.
Yeah, and I should say that the PowerPoint will be available in a PDF version, so the videos won't be viewable. But if you wanted to view the videos again, like Laura said, we'll have the recording available on the website of this meeting to view those videos. In addition, we have the materials where you'll be able to zoom into some of these plant views and cross sections a little bit closer. Those are available on that same website, which is tempe.gov/country club way path. So you'll be able to view those materials and zoom into all the same materials that you see on this PowerPoint.
Oh, someone, Amanda would like to talk. Hey, Amanda, I'm coming. Didn't see you. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I had posted those two questions earlier, and I think I kind of got a bit of a patronizing answer. Right now, for Circle G, with our one egress onto Warner, if we turn left, which is west, we have 2 car lengths ability before we would hit your pedestrian light or any traffic signal there. That is dangerous for any car traffic, certainly dangerous for any pedestrians right there. We will go to the city council and put as much pressure as possible to stop that light being installed there. would you please consider another option rather than, I'm going to be honest with you, blowing off my question. You just tell me that you just want to cross the street because it's the straight shot and that you would never do anything unsafe tells me you actually have not investigated either another option on water or investigated the safety concerns for residents in Circle G ranches who have to turn west. So I'm going to put that, that's really just a comment, but obviously you have not investigated it. You need to, and we will put as much pressure as possible to stop that location.
Thank you for the comment. And yes, it's our preliminary design at this stage. So we will continue as we move forward. We'll be investigating that signal as well as any other opportunities. So I'm sorry if it came across that there is no other alternative. I would say that it is our first priority would always be to provide a direct connection. But as we review the design, if there is anything that conflicts with safety or if it's just not feasible to put that there, then we would look at other alternatives as well. And this is our first opportunity to get that feedback. So that's why we welcome it. And thank you for raising those concerns, because this is our first time going to the public since it was identified in the 2017 comments from the public to add the signal. So this is our first opportunity, and this is what we would like to get feedback on.
We appreciate that. And the other comment that I do need to put out there is that in 2017, the city got significant feedback from Circle G ranches that effectively we are sort of a self-contained community. We fought and won the city council's change from putting us on any kind of city bike route. And we don't want an equestrian, a concept that we are going to have additional equestrian traffic in our neighborhood or additional bike traffic in our neighborhood. We cannot accommodate additional pedestrian traffic in our neighborhood as our city streets have not been maintained by the city in 14 years. And our city sidewalks are in such bad disrepair and the city does not have us on their schedule for city sidewalk repairs either. So I'm just going to strenuously object to anything. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Not just me, but the neighborhood will strenuously object to the concept of any additional traffic being brought into our neighborhood.
Thanks, Amanda. We have another comment that I'll read that was posted. We know someone who lost a family member at the ASU Research Parkway. It's absolutely unnecessary to have another light just 2 blocks away to allow people to access neighborhoods that don't have bike paths. Also, Circle G horse paths are private, not public, so the city should not direct horse traffic into our neighborhood. There are only 2 horses in our neighborhood currently actively riding. It will make it very difficult to exit our neighborhood to have an additional light, and we only have 2 exits already. So thank you for that comment. I want to remind everyone that it's really important that you go to tempe.gov/forum and post all your comments, and all the things you're saying here are really important. We want to capture that. So make sure you go there after this meeting and let us know. Is there anyone else that would like to speak or post a question?
This is Erin. I spoke a little earlier. I just wanted to say something real quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely, Erin. Go ahead.
Okay, I just hope you guys have mentioned a couple times that this is the first time that you've come out to the public to get feedback. And it's my understanding, I had talked to one of you, the project designer or something, on the phone, and he mentioned there was going to be another round of public input after this one. What I'm hoping is that you have taken our accounts into mind and have shown that you have reflected upon our comments the next time you come out to the public. Because if you come out again and have the exact same plan after we provided all this feedback, people are not going to be pleased that we took the time on a Saturday, we showed up, we gave thoughtful input, and we want it to be shown in the next meeting, because otherwise we're going to be writing to the council and saying that we don't feel heard, because we've shared comments about safety and about things like that, and it's like, next round, if we hear the exact same thing, oh, and here's the path and here's the signal and it looks the exact same, we're just going to know. I know you guys are telling us to go to the forum, but you guys have heard it. This is on record. It's on, you can replay it on YouTube. So please listen to what we're saying, because we'd like to see those changes by the next time it comes out to the public again. Thank you for all of your work, by the way, on this too.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to make a comment, ask a question? I'm not seeing any hands or any further questions at this time. We'll give it a few more minutes in case someone's thinking on that. Okay, well, if I'm not seeing any more questions, Chase, do you want any final words to wrap up, or?
No, just thank you everyone again for participating in the public meeting, and again, encourage anyone to share the link to our survey so that we can get as much feedback as possible with the project. Thanks everyone.
Yep, we appreciate all your comments. Thank you so much. All right, with that, I'm going to end our event. Have a good Saturday, everybody.